Look at this. Isn't it wonderful? I'm so goddamn famous that you can just put an envelope in the mail with nothing on it, and it still gets to me. Hello, my name is Penn, Jillette, and I am more than half in every way of Penn and Teller, and I am here to do the daily mailbag. Oh, just dropped in perfectly, didn't it? That was really nice. So dump them out. Oh, Jiminy Cricket. And the winner is, I don't think I've opened an envelope since I did the Emmys. Ah, there we go. You've described James Randi as being everything to you. Can you explain why? Randi was a skeptic and he was a magician. And when I was young and first saw magic, I hated it. To me, magicians were just the greasy guy in a tux with a lot of birds torturing women in front of Mylar to bad rip-off Motown music that stopped me from seeing the rock and roll acts that I wanted to see on the variety shows. And I also really didn't like the idea of lying. So many of the magicians and mentalists were simply liars, and it really troubled me. And then I found out about Randi. Randi, the amazing Randi, tied into my rock and roll world because he did all the special effects for Alice Cooper. He was someone that came along and said that people who were doing religious events and psychic events and all these supernatural events were actually doing cheesy magic tricks and passing it off as real. And Randi kept that philosophical idea that you could do magic and be honest. He referred to himself as the honest liar. And that's really important. When you go to see a magic show and they saw a person and a half, as I said, usually because of the deeply embedded misogyny in magic, it's usually a woman. Nobody, except the very young and people who are perhaps mentally ill, believe that they've actually witnessed the death of a person. They leave the theater having seen a trick that they know is a trick. That's really simple. But on stuff like mentalism and other sorts of tricks, magicians can want you to leave the theater believing something that they know not to be true, that they read your mind or something. And I believe that is ethically and morally wrong and does a great deal of damage to our society. And as silly as that is, I believe it is on a continuum, the silliness of a magic trick to the importance of our government itself. That's all thanks to Randi. I'm not smart enough to get any of those ideas. Randi just taught them to me. I'm going to reach around and pull one up at random. How does a magician go from performances to patenting the Jillette? What inspired this invention? I have a patent, and that patent is for pleasing women. Beat that, huh? Beat that. It was originally called the jet, but the American government, being full of fascists, wouldn't let us use that. So it's called the Jillette. A very famous cis female singer was a good friend of mine. And we went to see a shuttle launch of the space shuttle. How's this going to tie you with masturbation? Oh, we'll get there. And went to see a space launch of the shuttle. I took her down to FLA. She came out of the jacuzzi. She was complaining that she was trying to masturbate on the jet of the jacuzzi in the hotel we were staying at, and she was in what she believed to be a fairly unladylike position. And there was a young child who came in with family, and she was swearing and complaining that the fault was not her, but the fault was the placement of the jets. So I have a lot of friends in the sciences who have a lot of patents. I was talking to them about my Jillette, which I got built into my jacuzzi, while one of their wives was on the Jillette and enjoying it. And he said, you know, you could get a patent on this. And I said, bullshit. I can't get a patent on just placing a jet in the right position to hit the of a young woman while she's enjoying a nice hot bath. And he said, sure you can. So I now have the patent on the Jillette. And how do I go from magic performances to creating the Jillette? It's just, I care about women having orgasms. Next. Look at this. Another one I just pulled out of this whole pile here. I'm not good at opening envelopes, not my strong suit. Have you ever been heckled during a performance? If so, how did you handle it? Well, I started out as a street performer. So I have worked very rough environments. I have worked biker bars. So have I been heckled? Oh yeah, I've been heckled. I remember once there was a guy who was heckling a lot when you said the usual stuff you say. My favorite comeback to a heckler is, I don't agree with what you said, but I'll fight to the death for your right to say it. But nothing worked on this guy. So I actually stopped the show, took him out in the lobby and talked to him. And for 2 or 3 minutes said, what's going on? And he was wicked drunk. And he thought he was helping out the show, and I disabused him of that. And we had a rather pleasant talk. Oh, let me see if I can find something under here. Oh, look at this. It's a postcard. English Garden, Gardens of the Nations, Rockefeller Center, New York City, which is where we will be. We're going to be playing Radio City Music Hall this year. What's one myth only idiots still believe in? Free will. We don't have it. The person who puts these in here does not know how to fold paper. How do you and Teller navigate creative differences when developing edgy material? The reason that Teller and I are working together is the creative differences. Teller and I did not get together because we were friends. We just knew we did better stuff together. So the creative differences are not navigated. The creative differences are what we're doing. It's what we want to be doing. We usually just keep going till there's something that both of us like more than the original idea. People who've come in to work with us are sometimes a little bit taken aback by the fact that we do not do all the touchy-feely niceties of improv. There's no yes and. Almost every idea is treated with that idea sucks, I hate it. And then we go from there. It's not a nurturing environment. We work under a very rough environment, and that's the way we both like it. For the next one, I'm reaching into my coat pocket. Incidentally, this jacket is a real NASCAR jacket. We were what was it called? Masters of Ceremony or something for one of the NASCAR races, and they gave me a jacket. Which just shows if you want me to host something in your hometown, just give me a jacket. You say you're on Trump's hate list. How did you get on there? And are you uncomfortable being hated by the President of the United States? That's a tough one. Donald Trump Jr. said to me when I did one of my tours of duty on Celebrity Apprentice that I was the only one he ever met who seemed to like his father. I get along with his father fairly well on Apprentice because I have a great deal of tolerance for those who are off the bell curve. So Trump lacks filters because he lacks shame and lacks morality. And when we were working on a TV show that was silly and stupid and didn't mean anything, I thought there was a certain amount of, charm is not the right word, there's no charm. There's a little bit of interest. And then it turned out that a lot of America seemed to believe that show that wasn't true. Maybe I was part of that. I knew Trump was a dipshit. I knew he was a loser, brought Atlantic City into bankruptcy. I knew that he was a joke, but I called him Mr. Trump on TV. And for that, I will always feel guilty. He's the only person I've ever seen who never made a joke and never laughed at a joke. And he couldn't tap his foot to music. When music would play, his foot wouldn't move. That's really rare. There are some deep problems with Trump. Who else had money in the 80s living in New York City and never bought one piece of art? Right? Jesus Christ, what a fool. But I liked working with him because I'll work with anybody, you know. And then he was running for president. And they asked me on the show if I would endorse him running for president. I said, absolutely not. And then I made some comments. One of my favorite things I said about him is trying to explain art to Donald Trump is like trying to explain art to Donald Trump. And then I also said that his hair looked like cotton candy made of piss. And the night that he announced his candidacy, I went on MSNBC, and I was, I think, tremendously kind. I said that although I liked working with Trump on Celebrity Apprentice, I didn't think he'd be a good president. And Trump went crazy on Twitter, which is the fact that the president, I think it's one of my favorite comebacks I've ever had, was he said that I was completely unknown before I went on Celebrity Apprentice. And I pointed out to him that the name of the show is Celebrity Apprentice. Anyway, that struck me funny. So the New York Times in 2016 put together a hate list of Donald Trump's based on the frequency and the venom of his tweets. I was number 7 on the most hated of the person who was to become president of the United States. If you want a perspective on that, Hillary Clinton is number 8. Am I uncomfortable because Donald Trump hates me? No. I am proud of that. Am I uncomfortable that the President of the United States hates me? Yes. It's the fact that we have a president whose priorities are so out of whack that he would make any comment about someone who is an insignificant entertainer. So yeah, it bothers me, but not for the reason you might think. And for my next trick, oh, look where that came from. Isn't that something? Oh, this is the big one. This will be a big, long question. And no, it's just one sentence. Are there topics or themes you consider off limits in your work despite your reputation for pushing boundaries? Yeah, I will never comment on an individual that we get up on stage. Nothing bothers me more. That's not true. Bed bugs bother me more. But one of the things that troubles me is when a magician gets a person up on stage and comments on their looks in any way, comments on their gender in any way, and also, and boy, it makes me sick to say this, flirts. By the way, there is no magician who is sexually attracted. It has never happened. So I want to push boundaries intellectually, but I will not comment on individuals. The exception to that, of course, is people who are in the business of being commented on. For instance, if Gilbert Gottfried, my dear friend, if he were at a roast commenting on me and attacked me physically, not physically, but attacked my physicality, my looks, that is completely moral. I would make any sort of joke about Gilbert or someone who's professionally, and especially someone that I love, or someone that I really dislike. And I would say off limits is anyone's sexuality, anyone's physicality. This is the last one. This better be a good one, you know. This one's going to be, I imagine, how do we solve climate change? And I have the answer. And it's Penn. Oh, dear me. How do you feel about other magicians performing tricks that you're known for, like the bullet catch? Well, that's a good example. The bullet. You don't want to know about the globe? Okay, it's all right. I have no problem with people stealing tricks, as long as they're stealing them from someone who is more successful than they are. I think that's really important. There are magicians that take tricks from people who are not well known, and then that hurts the career of the person who's less well known. But I think if you take a trick from someone who's better known, I think that's really good. That's the way you learn. Now, the bullet catch is a complicated example because the bullet catch has killed 12 people. We do it completely safe, which incidentally is not our trick. It goes back to Native American or indigenous Americans back in the 17th century, 18th century. So it's certainly not ours. I would discourage anyone from doing it unless they can convince me it's 100% safe. That having been said, the idea of keeping secrets in magic is total jive. When you're keeping the secrets, you're using that to keep other people out. If you want an art form to be good, to, well, be an art form, which magic often isn't, you need to let everybody in. And it's such an insult to think that the secret is what makes a magic trick good. That's like saying, I can give you the chords and the lyrics to a Taylor Swift song and then you're Taylor Swift. It's just not true. It's always the singer and not the song. It's always your heart. So there are no secrets in magic. I like the fact that every trick we've ever done is available on the internet.
Bonus round.
How do we solve climate change? And you know, we're out of time. This has been Penn, Jillette at the Daily Mailbag. Thank you so much for tuning in.